Welcome back. Now we move on to the panel keynotes and discussions. To chair this session, I would like to invite Dr. Manoj Kumar, founder and clinical director of Mental Health Action Trust, or MHAT, a charitable trust based in Kozhikode, Kerala. He's also the co-investigator of our project. Welcome, sir. Now let me hand the session over to you.
Thank you very much. First of all, a big thank you to the organizers, Professor Raghuraghavan and team, for giving me this privilege of chairing this very important session. Apologies to the presenters as well as the audience that we are running slightly behind schedule. Sorry about that. It's my pleasant task to introduce the speakers for this evening. Each speaker will speak for about 10 minutes, after which the audience will have an opportunity to ask questions or make comments. We would prefer that you make the comments in the chat box, and if you could add your questions in the Q&A tab, that will make it slightly easier for us. Thank you. The time allocation is rather short, and I seek the cooperation of the presenters in this regard. Please forgive me if I have to interrupt you if you run over time. Our first speaker of the evening is Lakshmi Shivakumar. She lives in Calicut and is a graduate in chemistry. Several years ago, Lakshmi was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and after a lot of struggle was able to recover from the repeated cycles of bipolar episodes. She then went on to study interior designing and worked for a renowned architectural firm for 5 years. She started her association with MHAT, Mental Health Action Trust at Calicut, as a volunteer a few years ago, and gradually became the face of the peer support group MHAT called We Are Recovering. She currently sits on the trust board of the MHAT and is active in various activities of MHAT, including selection interviews for new staff. As the coordinator of the peer support group, she helps people with mental health issues to discuss their unique experiences in a non-judgmental, stigma-free zone. According to her, the purpose of a peer support group is to develop optimism and trust in recovery among members while giving them the feeling that they are not alone. Her hobbies are music and dance, and she also plays the veena. Happily married, she's blessed with 2 children. Welcome, Lakshmi. The next speaker will be Dr. Varghese P. Punnus, currently Professor and Head of Department of Psychiatry, Government Medical College, Kottayam. A psychiatrist for the last 24 years, he's a member of the Postgraduate Board of Studies, Kerala University of Health Science. He is the recipient of many awards and honors, such as the Fellowship for Young Psychiatrists by the World Psychiatric Association, Dr. J.S. Satyadas Oration Award for Excellence in Medical Teaching, and the Catholicate Award for University Teachers. He has a number of publications, including 12 journal publications and 2 chapters in textbooks. He has held various positions in the past, including as the past president of the Indian Psychiatric Society, Kerala chapter, the Secretary General of Indian Association of Social Psychiatry, and as the General Secretary of the National Alliance for Mental Health. His areas of interest are child and adolescent psychiatry and community and public psychiatry. Welcome to this conference, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Our third speaker is Dr. Vinu Prasad Venugopalan, currently working as an associate professor in the Department of Psychiatry, Government Medical College, Palakkad. He is representing the Kerala Shastra Sahitya Parishad. And the last speaker is the only person I have not had the pleasure of meeting before. He's Dr. Narayanan, whose CV is very impressive and his life story very inspiring. He's a pediatrician by training, having done his undergraduate and postgraduate education at the Trivandrum Medical College. He is the Chief Medical Officer and trustee of the Swami Vivekananda Medical Mission Attapadi, the State Vice President of the Deshiya Seva Bharati, Kerala, and the Director of Vishwasanti Foundation, Cochin. He's involved in the development of the Tribal Hospital Community Mental Health Program, Alcohol De-Addiction Project, Village Health Worker Program, and the Village Development Program at Attapadi. The awards and honors he has received are too many to mention here. He came to Attapadi in Palakkad district of Kerala in 2002. While pursuing his medical studies in Trivandrum, he was inspired by the words of Swami Vivekananda. He had a deep desire to provide medical service to the poor and needy in the remote villages of the country. Once he completed his postgraduate studies in pediatrics, he reached Attapadi to start medical relief work. The initial years in Attapadi were spent studying the tribal community and their needs, and a mobile medical unit was started in November 2002, and he began conducting medical camps, visiting tribal villages and sharing their lives, working without remuneration for 3 years. The Swami Vivekananda Medical Mission was registered as a charitable trust in 2004, and the hospital was inaugurated in 2006. The work of Swami Vivekananda Medical Mission has opened new horizons in the health sector, in addition to the numerous possibilities in community development and education. The vision of his initiatives is the development of a community of tribal people with a healthy body and sound mind. A community mental health program was started in March 2009 in Attapadi, benefiting more than 200 tribal patients, a good number of whom have resumed their normal lives. A de-addiction program at Swami Vivekananda Medical Mission Hospital was also started in 2011. Time constraints force me to stop here, but it is clear that we have a lot to learn from Dr. Narayan and his inspiring life that he has led so far. A very warm welcome to you, sir. So over to Lakshmi as the first speaker of the evening.
Yes, thank you, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. So, good evening, everyone. I am here as a peer support group coordinator of Mental Health Action Trust. So, before we say about a peer support group, let us see what a peer is. Somebody who has gone through similar experiences. Commonly, collectively, is known as peer. ഒരേ അനുഭവത്തിൽ കൂടി പോകുന്ന ആൾക്കാരെ ഒരു കളക്റ്റീവായിട്ട് പിയർ എന്ന് വിളിക്കാം. അങ്ങനെയാണ് അവർ തമ്മിലുള്ള ഒരു സപ്പോർട്ട് സിസ്റ്റം വരുമ്പോഴാണ് പിയർ സപ്പോർട്ട് ഗ്രൂപ്പ് വരുന്നത്. So let us look at the history of peer support group. The history of peer support group tracked back from 18th century, but a mental health service community ഒരു മൂവ്മെന്റ് ഉണ്ടായത് 1970s ഒരു ഡിസ്ക്രിമിനേഷനെതിരെ ഞങ്ങൾ രണ്ടാം തരം പൗരന്മാരല്ല എന്ന രീതിയിലുള്ള ഒരു ഡിസ്ക്രിമിനേഷനെതിരെ ഫൈറ്റ് ചെയ്യാൻ വേണ്ടിയിട്ടാണ് ഇങ്ങനെ ഒരു മൂവ്മെന്റ് ആദ്യം വന്നത്. ഈ ഒരു മെന്റൽ ഹെൽത്ത് ഇഷ്യൂസ് വരുമ്പോൾ അതൊരു ട്രീറ്റ്മെന്റിന് വേണ്ടിയിട്ട് ആരുടെ ഔദാര്യത്തിന് നിൽക്കേണ്ട ആവശ്യമില്ല. ഇറ്റ് ഈസ് എ റൈറ്റ് ഫോർ ദ മെന്റൽ ഹെൽത്ത് പേഷ്യന്റ് ടു ഹാവ് ഗുഡ് ട്രീറ്റ്മെന്റ്. അതും ആ മൂവ്മെന്റിന്റെ വലിയൊരു ഭാഗമായിരുന്നു. അപ്പോൾ ഇവിടെ ആസ് എ പേഴ്സൺ who is a peer, I myself had a bipolar disorder long back. 15 years I was struggling with my disease, in and out of bipolar issues, and now I think for past 5 years I am stable because I have adapted myself to the disease, and through my own recognition as a bipolar person, I was able to deal with the stigma. There is a lot of stigma associated with the mental illnesses. So as a peer, I can do what I can do to help others. That was the thought that led me to MHAT. Mental Health Action Trust helped me deal with my stigma, and lot of this problems, the discriminations, the right for treatment, everything was equally addressed by Mental Health Action Trust, as I was concerned about that also. Mental Health Action Trust is a follows a recovery oriented model. So what is a recovery oriented model? There are two types of recovery for a person facing mental health issues. One is clinical recovery, where there is therapy, there are medicines, there are psychiatrists, etc. And clinically the symptoms are going. But personal recovery is also part of the recovery oriented model, in which the clinical recovery, after clinical recovery, the person has to develop his communication skills, his social skills, his role as a father, mother, son, daughter, or anybody doing any job. All this comes in the personal recovery. Clinical recovery is just part of the personal recovery. And when we started, when I came to MHAT and told my story, I was asked to start a peer support group in which I could communicate with the peers and help them in their recovery. അപ്പോൾ ഈ ക്ലിനിക്കൽ റിക്കവറി എന്നുള്ള ഭാഗം കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ once the clinical recovery is over, a personal recovery starts. That is when the patient is introduced to the peer support, and we sit in a group, we discuss our stories to each other, and the peer get the feeling that he is not alone. The feeling that he is not alone itself is a big discovery to the recovery of the patient. And the connectedness, every story is unique, but there is a connectedness between the peers who share their stories. The peer gets hope to that if somebody else can recover, I can also recover. Peers gets an identity, and peer helps the patient to get a meaning of life. Like how I have gone through all this, you can also go through all this and find meaning in life. And also empowerment. The empowerment portion is more likely with the help of peer, he can do the certain works, he can regain the social skills, he can do a job as he was doing always, or find a new job. All this comes under empowerment. And ultimately, the voice of the peer is very important. There is no decision about us without us. That is the voice of the peer. And MHAT advocates that very much. As a member of trust board of MHAT, I proudly say that the voice of the peer is very important in MHAT. And there is one peer present in the interview session and also training sessions of the clinicians, psychiatrists, and psychologists of MHAT. It's a very difficult to go through this experience. Once we go through the experience, when I was going through the experience, I always felt that something was missing. If there was somebody to understand me better, I could have recovered better. If somebody had told me that this and this is okay with this, though there is no need for stigma to experience a mental illness, I could have recovered better. I have always felt that. And once I came to MHAT, I could help others with my experience, and I could tell my story to others, which eventually helped them to recover. So that is my story. Anything else, sir?
No, thank you very much, Lakshmi. Hopefully, we'll have questions and comments at the end. Thank you for sharing. It's not easy to do that, I know, but thank you for doing that. And let's move on to the next speaker, Dr. Varghese Pinnos.
I hope my slide is displayed.
Not yet, sir. Yes, it's beginning.
It is the entire screen has come.
I think you need to click on that screen, if I remember right. Backstage, Parvati, can you please step in?
Yeah, just a moment.
I think while we are waiting for Dr. Punus to share his screen, maybe in the interest of time, we can move over to Dr. Vinu Prasad. Vinu, would you like to start your talk, please?
I also have slides, sir. I will also try
Well,
to
do
the
try
same.
to share. Whoever gets there first can have the stage. While we are waiting, I was having a quick look at the chat box, and there are a uh, number of comments there, most of which say that it is, thanking Lakshmi for making a good start, and also saying that it is very inspiring to listen to you. Thank you, Lakshmi. More power to you, says Ashabanu. Dr. Raghu says, great start, Lakshmi. The feeling that you are not alone summarizes all elements of help seeking and support. Thank you. I think we have something on the screen. Apologies to all. These are, yes, fantastic. I think we will move over to Dr. Vinu Prasad's presentation.
Is it?
Stage is yours. Yeah.
Can you
Am
see,
I
sir?
audible
Yeah,
now?
we can. No, Dr. Punus, we have moved on to Dr. Vinu Prasad's presentation.
I
So,
shall wait, sir. I shall wait.
yeah,
Let
thank you. Thank you.
Varghese sir takes the stage.
No. Since you're on, do go ahead, Vinu.
Okay. Once I will stay here. Once Vinu
Yeah.
is finished, I will.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
That's
Thank
fine.
you. Vinu, go ahead.
Okay,
Should
sir.
I stop sharing the screen now?
No. We can see your screen. Everything is fine. Just go on
Yeah,
and present, Vinu.
Okay, sir. Good evening, sir. Good evening, all. It is indeed a honor to share a stage with stalwarts in the field like Manoj Kumar sir, Varghese Punnu sir, and all. My topic, I would like to thank Dr. Raghu Raghavan and his team for this opportunity. Without much delay, let me directly move on to the topic. The topic is engaging with communities for mental health literacy. I am representing Kerala Shastra Sahitya Parishad for today. This particular article, which appeared in Canadian Journal of Psychiatry, you might have already seen during this program, or is likely to see again, because this gives a definition of broad definition of mental health literacy. That mental health literacy includes understanding of mental health disorders as health related entities, their general characteristics, causes, and treatments, decreased stigma towards mental illness, and one's ability to navigate self and others through helps proper health seeking channels. This public knowledge about mental health disorders has received much less attention, and it has proven that there is evidence from survey that this particular literacy is much less in many countries. That is the importance of our Me Help program. the public's knowledge about mental illness, how to prevent it, knowledge about help-seeking options, knowledge about self-help, knowledge about first aid, everything is lacking according to the surveys. Moving on to our topic, engaging with communities. I'll be seeing it through the eyes of Kerala Shastra Sahitya Parishad and its activities. To engage with a community, we should first understand that particular community and identify ourselves as a member of that particular group, and they also should be able to see us as one of them, unless our ideas may not be taken. Regarding Kerala, it is the first state in India to claim 100% literacy, as all knows. But literacy in one domain doesn't mean that literacy in all domains. For example, yesterday during getting familiarized with our platform Zoodle, then only I had a insight about my digital illiteracy. Similarly, many might have had that particular experiences. So similarly, about the public also, we have 100% literacy that cannot encompass all fields or domains of literacy. We also have high human development index. We do most of many other things, but let's see, focus on our topic. Our organization, Kerala Shastra Sahitya Parishad, was found in 1962 as a guild of science writers. Then it grew in its membership, and it has now more than 50,000 volunteers spread in 1,200 units, which follows the motto of Science for Social Revolution. The major contribution so far has been in involvement in literacy movement, and majorly for that, in 1996, KSSP was awarded the Right Livelihood Award, which is known as the Second Nobel. The modes of engagement with communities used are predominantly publications, seminars, camp, street plays, music, etc. As publications in our regional language Malayalam, it is one of the long-standing publications, uninterrupted publications by Shastra Sahitya Parishad. There is Eureka for primary school children, Shastra Keralam for high school and higher secondary children, and Shastra Gadi for adult population. It's uninterrupted scientific, purely scientific publications. Other mode of engagement is seminars. This is mainly for volunteers, peers, peer group leaders, and all to discuss serious core topics. But this may not engage general public as such. The importance of medical camps has been of late decreasing because of widespread availability of medical facilities. One of the major forms of well-known modes of engagement is street play. Street plays using are used for spread of knowledge, to impart knowledge about predominantly in environment and conservation issues. Also, recently regarding health issues also. It will be a very nice tool to impart knowledge in mental health literacy domain also. Remembering late Mr. N.K. Shashidharan, who left us last month, was one of the torchbearers of KSSP through music. He was a great musician. Many of his songs in science are still very much popular among public. During COVID times, in mental health, regarding mental health, KSSP was involved in two programs predominantly. One is Makkal Koppam, that is about education of parents and children, about online education and all during our COVID times. And second was Ujjwala Kaumaram, predominantly focusing on teenagers, adolescent age group. We also had a special issue of Shastra Keralam during that, with that. All said and done, there are still gaps in mental health literacy, mental health delivery. In the last Mental Health Day statement, our Health Minister, Mrs. Veena George, stated that there are 12.8 million in need of help in our state of Kerala, and of them only 15 do seek help. So stage is very much set for us. There is a ripe ground. We should sow seeds, and we should engage with communities with related to mental health literacy. Thank you for your patient listening. I hope I have stick to time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Vinu. You have very well stuck to time. Thank you very much. And back to Dr. Varghese Panos.
So can I proceed with my presentation? How do we?
Please do, sir.
Yeah, I think my slide is now displayed.
Unfortunately, not yet, sir. Dr. Narayan, if you don't mind, can we move on to your presentation? I think we have temporarily lost Dr. Panos. So while we wait to come back, it will be great if you could start your presentation. Dr. Narayan.
Just half a minute. I'll just organize
Okay.
my.
There's a comment for Dr. Vinu Prasad. Thank you, Dr. Vinu, for outlining the work of KSSP in promoting mental health literacy. That's a comment.
I'm not able to share.
Okay, can colleagues backstage step in, please? Both Dr. Panos and Dr. Narayanan. Meanwhile, there is a, okay. I think Dr. Panos is coming on. Oh, yes, we can see it now, sir. Dr. Varghese Panos, we can see your slide. I think we have.
Is it visible?
It was for a second, but now for me at least it's not visible, sir.
Oh, now what's happening?
Can you try again, please?
No, when you show the presentation, probably you won't be able to see your.
Yeah,
face.
you won't be able to see us, sir.
Yeah, it's coming on my stage as on my screen. It's being displayed, but I don't know.
We did.
Hi, Dr. Varghese. Sir, we are here. Sir, can you please stop share again? Can you come onto the platform? Please click escape on your presentation. And if you can jump onto the platform once, please.
Yeah, I am here back here on the platform.
Okay. Sir, now again, can you do the same thing? Can you click on the share screen button?
Yes, share screen.
Yes. Now there's an entire screen is there, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Can you click over there and then share your screen again? Yes, sir. We can see your screen. Can you go onto the presentation now? Yes. Yes, sir. We can see the presentation. Can you click on the slideshow mode, please? Thank you, sir. We can see your screen. I hope it's visible for everyone.
Great, it is visible.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll move ahead.
Please do.
Okay, so sorry for all this trouble. I don't know what was happening.
No,
so thank you all for bearing with me, Dr. Manoj. Dr.
No,
Raghu.
sir, it is our problem, not yours.
Yeah. So I am supposed to spend a few minutes on mental health literacy. in the urban population in Kerala, especially in the pandemic setting. Actually, when we start talking about this topic, is there a rural-urban divide in Kerala? Practically speaking, when we compare Kerala to the rest of India, it's a big urban territory, except maybe some places like Wayanad or Idiki. If you take the entire Kerala, it's almost an urban or a semi-urban setting. We know that the recently conducted National Mental Health Survey, urban Kerala had higher prevalence of mental disorders in general. There is a paradox here. As already pointed out by Dr. Vinu Prasad, there is a paradox like high indices of quality of life and general health. Like, for example, the Human Development Index is perhaps the highest in India. Literacy rate almost reaching 100%. The favorable gender ratio, these are all on one side. And on the other side, we have the poor indices of mental health, like high mental health morbidity, almost 14.4% lifetime prevalence, high suicide rate, one of the first 5 states in India. And individuals with high suicide risk is 12% versus 6.4% of the national average. And high levels of stigma and discrimination despite the literacy rates, etc. And again, as Dr. Vinu pointed out, there is a treatment gap of 84%. So the emerging urban Kerala, UK is not for United Kingdom, urban Kerala, middle class, is a kind of demographic transition which is happening in urban and semi-urban Kerala. And Kerala is the fast socio-economic transformation which happens with globalization and westernization. The high levels of education on one side, which contrasts with low employment rate on the other side. The high aspirations of living standards on one side and the decline in earnings, especially in the post-pandemic scenario. The high levels of alcohol use and psychoactive substance consumption. All these might contribute, and of the pandemic-related increase in psychopathology, suicide rates, the behavioral, the externalizing problems in children. So perhaps all this might contribute to the higher morbidity, mental health morbidity in urban Kerala. And of course, why Kerala is looked upon, even for this study, Kerala, I think the investigators might have thought that Kerala represents the direction in which other states in India are likely to move in the coming years. So there are several mental health literacy gaps even among the literate or even educated urban population. I don't have much statistics with me to quote, but from clinical experience, from the real experience, I work in a general hospital setting. We do have a lot of experience with the urban middle class, the emerging middle class of Kerala. And there do exist gaps regarding the causes of mental disorders, gaps in symptoms identification, gaps in accessing treatment, and of course, there are a lot of misconceptions and knowledge gaps in ideas, scientific ideas about prevention and promotion of mental health. So these all might contribute to the stigma and discrimination, even in the educated, emerging urban middle class of Kerala. So let's have a quick look regarding the causes of mental disorders. Supernatural determinants still very widely prevalent, even held by educated people. And the psychodynamic causes find a lot of acceptance among the educated people. And the stress response model and people attributing the cause of mental illnesses to respectable causes like a head injury or hormonal imbalances like that in very vague terms. So all these misconceptions and literacy problems, I should say, lead on to difficulties in access or delays in accessing mental health. Even though Kerala scenario has got a lot of pluralism, richness and diversity of services, that is in one way confusing, very confusing to the consumers. Where to go, whom to meet? This is a very common question we face. And the stigmatizing perceptions and even the patients and their family internalizes the stigmas, and that also causes delay in treatment. Attribution biases in symptoms. Even among health professionals, even among doctors, this knowledge gap is very much there. And of course, lot of pseudoscientific and pop psychology fills in the areas of knowledge or areas of information concerning prevention and promotion. So another paradox, the second paradox in urban Kerala scenario of mental health is the underutilization. Kerala is a state where there is no real paucity of mental health professionals. If you look at the WHO statistics or any statistics, the number of psychiatrists or even our other mental health professionals, the denominator should not be the India, denominator should be Kerala. You find that enough number of professionals are there. And we have a very powerful, efficient public health system, but not exactly in terms of mental health. A private sector is strong here. General hospital psychiatry is vibrant here. A lot of community-based programs endures, and yet there is a treatment gap of around 85%. So, what exactly is contributing to this underutilization? There could be several factors, but I would prioritize mental health illiteracy as one among the top reasons why there is gross underutilization and this treatment gap is there. So I will quickly conclude. The sources of mental health literacy program in urban Kerala is mostly, as in every society, a lot of cultural beliefs and the peer group influences, literature, art and media, and of course, formal education. Possible avenues of mental health literacy enhancement in urban Kerala's middle class is probably the cultural belief which is undergoing a very rapid change because of the westernization and the social transformation. It's a time and history. This changes in value systems, the new generation coming up for seeking mental health on their own. And of course, the influence of social groups, the Sahridaya clubs in schools. In some of the schools, they are very well run, especially with the participatory role for students in mentoring and supporting of their peers. And recently, the mental health day was taken up by cyclists, propagating the idea of mental health, the senior citizen forums, the various kind of suicide prevention helplines, and like that, even the palliative care. Literature, art, and media. Our own medical students are taking up, they're making short films, movies, maybe Dr. Vinu mentioned about street plays, skits, etc. Very effective methods of disseminating knowledge about mental health and promoting mental health. Animated cartoons. Recently, Indian Association of Social Psychiatry, in association with World Association of Social Psychiatry, produced animated cartoons on various common mental health disorders in 10 languages in India. Celebrity disclosures. And of course, the formal education in the form of life skills training, psychological first aid training, especially in the COVID background, a lot of grief reaction training and psychological first aid training, teachers training, etc. So schools are reopening. We are doing a lot of teachers training activities these days. So these are the possible avenues of mental health literacy enhancement when we consider the urban Kerala population. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Varghese Punnus, for that concise presentation of all aspects relating to mental health literacy and urban Kerala. Over to Dr. Narayanan.
Yes, sir. Just a minute.
Okay. Hi,
Meanwhile,
Dr. Narayan, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. So please share your screen. Click on the share screen button, and after that, you can click on the entire screen. And in the entire screen, right below entire screen, there will be a preview button. There will be a window over there. Just click over there and share your screen, please.
My screen share button is not working.
I'm sorry?
My screen share button is not working.
Okay. Give me 1 second, please.
meanwhile, there are questions for Lakshmi and Vinu. Can you please look at them and answer them after we end? I think for Vinu, we can answer it now itself while we are waiting. And that's about street plays. If there is, the question was about use of street plays.
I'm not able to see the question, sir.
Okay, I think that's the problem because it is in the chat box. You'll have to go up.
Okay, 1 second, sir.
It's from Andy Barrett. I'd be interested to know more from Dr. Vinu about the street plays. If there is another moment when there is some time to fill, which is now. essentially, Andy wants to know more about the KSSP experience with street plays. I guess with the with the interest in using them for mental health literacy. Vinu.
Thank you, Dr. Bharat, for the question. That KSSP was one of the first group to use street plays during the I don't know whether you are aware of that Silent Valley conflict and all. It was all happened. That was one of the landmark events in history of Kerala. And this street plays recently there are events like flash mobs and all. This was much earlier than that. This was scripted for the public and used mainly the language of public and used songs like folk songs and all. And it was played in the streets. As Varghese Punnu sir said, Kerala is not like a village kind of a place. It is more like a big city spread in a between hills and sea. So wherever there is a road, there is a street. You can there won't be much space. You have to find the space and play your drama. Of course, it's a densely populated state, so there won't be any issues in finding the crowd anywhere. Wherever two people are gathering, it's a crowd. So people have invested their energy, their time. These are all done by volunteers, scripting, play, everything. All are done by the volunteers, and it was definitely an effort which is still continuing. I hope we can speak about more.
Thank you, Vinu. Since I've got you on stage, there was another question which has suddenly jumped, which is basically, thank you, Dr. Vinu, for the presentation. KSSP is doing a great work. Can the KSSP also focus on making the mental health services accessible to the student community, since it is focusing mainly on the same population? Not to get directly into delivering services, but especially in pressurizing the government to open posts of counselors in the schools around Kerala. I think there are 2 points there. One is of working with the student community, and the second is of exerting pressure on the government. I'm more interested in the first point, Vinu. I mean, my own personal feeling is that KSSP has not really focused on mental health. Amongst a lot of issues facing us as a state, the focus so far has been on, quite rightly, on various other issues. Do you think it is time now for KSSP to perhaps turn attention to this pandemic of mental health problems in Kerala?
Of course, sir. We also have been telling this to our state level committee that we have to focus on mental health issues. And of late, especially during the COVID times, they have spent a lot of time in organizing camps. Now, I'm getting a lot of calls so that I'm not able to attend anymore. That from schools, from various committees with peer groups and all, to talk, especially when these webinars and all things went online in COVID times. There were a lot of programs during this COVID time. Hopefully it continues offline also. The
Wonderful.
second part I am not very sure regarding pressurizing the government. That
yeah, which is why I focused on the first part. Yeah, it's really, that's not something that but it's a good suggestion, and I think we can leave it at that. There's a question which, if I may direct to Dr. Varghese Punnu, that is from Raghu, more amusing rather than a question. Beliefs in supernatural determinants, a way of making meaning or lack of mental health literacy. I'll read it again. Beliefs in supernatural determinants, a way of making meaning, or is it a lack of mental health literacy? Dr. Pinus.
Yeah. Again, it's a very good observation, rather a comment rather than a question. But I would like to briefly reflect on that. So why I mentioned it, because even this kind of belief about the causation of mental illness is deeply rooted even among the highly educated people in Kerala, in urban Kerala, I should specify, because this belief system should be addressed. Of course, this is definitely an attempt to make a meaning out of what is happening. So they are at a loss to explain what is happening when the behavior changes. So this kind of explanations are to be respected, but at the same time, it has to be clarified and educated. Otherwise, it can interfere with the right kind of treatment seeking. So that is where it becomes important. It's also important to have many educated people do harbor the psychodynamic, the unconscious mind kind of thing, and they think that okay, hypnosis or other kind of with the kind of things which are highlighted in the movies might be that is what psychiatrists employ. So this kind of unrealistic expectations can sometimes result in non-adherence to treatment and going to. So these are the issues which we need to deal. I was just trying to highlight that. Thank you.
Thank you. And over to Dr. Narayanan. Yes, Dr. Narayanan, you can start.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry for the delay. There was
Not a
a
problem.
slight
Not a
problem
problem.
which they sorted it out back.
Of course.
So thanks all for the opportunity, Dr. Reku Raghavan and others of my help. It's a wonderful opportunity to speak a small story from a remote place in Kerala. So it's a very small story about tribal mental health, which we have been we went through for the last 12 years. Next slide. So it is like this. I am a pediatrician, and I was practicing in Attapadi in a clinic, and we were seeing large number of mentally ill patients coming to our OP, and we understood that it was a problem the community is facing. And whenever we wanted them to see a psychiatrist, they were not able to see a psychiatrist. They were not able to access medicines. So it was a community problem, community health problem. So we did a small study, a survey. I wouldn't call it a study. We surveyed the number of patients that were there. Frankly, mentally ill patients who our volunteers could find out without any medical background. So we found out there were a large number of patients, and many of whom they had been to a psychiatrist when they were really ill, when they were showing some violent symptoms. But later on, they were left to themselves and be in their own worlds because medicines were not available. And to see the psychiatrist, they had to go very far up to Kozhikode or Thrissur or some other places. So we discussed with experts, researched on what was happening all over the world, and I would mention Dr. Shaji KS, who helped me out on this particular problem. He asked us to start a mental health program with the primary care physician as the center of the program. So we started it. He gave us all the training. The basic protocols were written down, what to start and when to start. So we started it like that. In 2009, we started our program, and by 2010, it was in full flow. So in 2010, we did a detailed survey. We found out there were about close to 300 psychotic patients in Attapadi, and we found out that that is close to 70% were not getting any treatment. And whoever had started treatment, most of them had stopped it as soon as the violent or very aggressive symptoms subsided. Next slide, please. So we went on to, that is the kind of mental health program that we were providing was fully based on our. Can I have the next slide? Somebody is helping me from backstage. So we did this survey in 2010, and just to give you a brief, the things very fast. That is, mental health survey we did in 2020 when 10 years were completed in our program. So 61.9% of patients did not receive any mental treatment in 2010. When we found out 283 patients with mental illness, Then there was very less awareness about the mental health in tribal hamlets. They didn't know where to go, how this is going to end, and other things. And as I told you, they had so many reasons to stop the treatment. In 2020, we identified about 323 patients. Both of these numbers I wouldn't vouch for very strongly, because most of the survey was done by volunteers who are not very well trained in mental health symptoms and other things, but they were given some outline of what to expect and other things. So it is a very broad survey. So in the 2020, after 10 years of our mental health program, we found out that we could actually bring most of the patients into the treatment bracket, treatment umbrella. Only about 25% of the mentally ill patients did not receive any treatment. So it was a huge shift over 10 years, and the awareness levels had improved, and most of the almost 80 patients were symptom free, and they were back to their normal lives. They were, even though they are taking some medicines, but they are fully active in their routine life. They are looking after their children, going to their work, and doing their domestic tasks and other things. Next slide, please. So basically, our mental health program had 4 components. Primary health facility was at the center of the program. Then we did some community-based rehabilitation. Then the increased awareness in the community, and some technical support and referral linkages. Next slide, please. So primary health care means we gave the treatment at the primary health facility, where every disease, that is, people come with their headaches, their cough and other things, and the persons with mental health also came to the same facility, and they were free to say whatever they want regarding their anxieties or fears and other things, and they could get treated with the doctor who would treat the headache also. So that also led to a very less stigma for the mental health patient, because they are here usually, as psychiatrists would understand, that people going to psychiatrists are always faced with stigma. So here, this facility gave a very, very good, nice way for the mental patients to get treated. They themselves come and ask for the medicines nowadays, and they get the medicines and go away. So every month the patient comes to the hospital to get treated. Then doctors and nurses, everybody knows what a psychiatric patient is. They are looked with compassion. They are treated with care. They are given preferences, and people are they also know how to deal with these psychiatric problems. When people come with violent symptoms, our team gets together to hold them and give some injections and to calm them down. Many of them have got bites and hits and all those things, but they don't mind. And provision of free medicines is always there. We give free medicines to the patients, because we deal with the tribal community. Most of them are impoverished, and the medicines, because we are given the medicines, the treatment compliance is good, and it is continued until the symptoms get over. And so this has given a very feasible and sustainable model. Next slide, please. So community-based rehabilitation, basically most of what is being done so far is our team goes to the houses of the patients, and they watch what is happening. They look at the caretakers, they supervise whether the medicines are being taken, and basically follow up on the patients. So that is what is being done. The rehabilitation part has to be done a little more. The patients who are symptom free have to be rehabilitated a little more. We are working on that. Probably in next few years the rehabilitation part will be better. Next slide, please. Increase in awareness in the community, that is one thing that we have done. We have engaged with all kinds of stakeholders, the village health workers of our own trust. They are present in about 100 villages. They are regularly trained in mental health. Every year, 1 or 2 sessions they get fully regarding mental health. We also talk with volunteers who help out with each mental patients in the villages. They may not be our day-to-day volunteers, but still they will help out for the mental patients. So they also are brought together and given some training. We talk to the ASHA workers, the tribal promoters, the Kudumbashri workers, all people who are interested in mental health are brought together and trained. We also have engagements with Anganwadi workers and all kinds of social groups. So this is and college students, the NSS volunteers, all of them are given some kind of training one time or the other regarding suicides, depression, and mental illness and other things. So a large level of literacy has come about over the last 10 years, and we find that though Attapadi is an area where we find almost 65% literacy in the general sense, mental health literacy has actually come about really well, and we find that whenever patients develop symptoms, they are immediately brought to our facility. So they know that it's mental illness and it is curable, and medicines need to be taken. So that is the core of mental health literacy, and we are happy that people have a lot of mental health literacy in that area. Next slide, please. Fourth is the technical support. As I said, I am not a psychiatrist, and we don't have psychiatrists in our facility. Initially, Medical College Thrissur was the department which helped us out with that is our doubts and references. Now, Mehak Foundation, Chitra Madam and her team, Dr. Purnima, and other social workers are visiting us every month. For the last maybe 10 years, that's something wonderful. They are coming on their own. They are visiting homes, visiting patients, and advising us on everything the patients need. So basically, they'll be seeing all the complicated patients who need decisions to be taken, who want to be step up or step down. Whichever patients whom we have a diagnostic problem, all these are seen by the psychiatrists, and most of the others are managed by our own primary health doctors. So, next slide, please. So, to sum up the experience from our place, ease of access to treatment is the core of the that is mental health program, which has brought all the patients very early to the facility, and early treatment gives good relief, and the patient becomes symptom free. That itself is the biggest advertisement for mental health. So the proof of the pudding is in the eating, and you see your neighbor getting ready after a mental health problem, then you know that it is treatable. You can get a treatment, and it is very much curable. So that has been. Attapadi is a small area, and even in the remote tribal hamlets, people immediately decide that this has to be treated, and they bring the patient to the hospital. So that is in a very nutshell what mental health literacy has been in that area. So village level health volunteers have helped a lot. They have really worked passionately and with commitment to bring mental health patients to our hospital. And in one village, particular village, there were about 6 or 7 mental patients who were all symptom free in another 6 months. And the village health worker was treated as a hero. So these things worked very much towards this mental health literacy and more awareness about mental health. So that sums up the mental health literacy work that we have been doing. Next slide, please. So regular monitoring of the patients, follow up when the patients don't come, we follow them. We go to their houses and bring them back. So primary healthcare professionals are trained in basic psychiatry, and as I said, the strong network of committed village level volunteers. All three have contributed to this very nice story, which is a very nice because though I'm a pediatrician, I love the psychiatric work more now because of this very nice experience. Thank you. That's it.
Wonderful.
That's all about.
Thank you very much, Dr. Narayanan. It's something very close to my heart also, because we run similar programs in Wayanad as well as in Idukki. I think we started 10 minutes late, so I wonder if there is any provision of adding those 10 minutes. I've been asked to summarize the talk so far, which I will very briefly do so that we can get on to some more discussions. We had 4 very interesting presentations. starting with Lakshmi Shivakumar, who started off with her personal story. It is very brave of her to come out and lead a movement like this. She defined the elements of peer support, and in a crux, what she said was no decisions about us without us, and that is what she's making true in Calicut. She's involved in major decisions within the organization as well. Dr. Vinu Prasad looked at from the standpoint of KSSP. He traced the history of KSSP in the various aspects, the various roles it has played in Kerala's social life. He looked at aspects of the various ways of engagement, and I think particular attention has been caught by our audience on the role of possible role of street plays. We have already had a bit of discussion on the need for KSSP to perhaps focus more on mental health literacy. Dr. Varghese Pinnus spoke eloquently about the issues in urban-rural, in urban Kerala, the lack of an urban-rural divide, the two UK paradoxes, which to Raghu's relief was not United Kingdom. He talked about the 4 aspects of the mental health gap, all of which, in my opinion, leads to reduced access to treatment. And he pointed out the underutilization of mental health services, even with more than 80% treatment gap, and the possible avenues forward. Personally, I was most interested in the story of Dr. Narayan's service, and he has described the changes that he has brought about. And I was particularly struck by the fact that if, with the limitations of the survey that he mentioned, 76% of people in Attapadi in 2020 were receiving services, which makes it 5 times more likely that you'll get a good service in Attapadi than the rest of Kerala, at least for psychosis. The various aspects of which, all of which I can identify very well with. In the question and answer session, I'll start with that. There was a specific question to Lakshmi. Thank you for sharing. Would peer support help at a prevention level, like a mental well-being peer support? I think that's a very good question. I'll repeat that. Would peer support help at prevention level, like a mental well-being peer support? Lakshmi.
I think the education should be right, and we can do that. We can do it with the preventive level also, because when you get into the treatment level, it has been already gone offhand, and it comes to psychiatrist or psychologist. But if we just give this education to the public about the awareness, create awareness among them, then I think the peer support can also be used to give the prevention area also.
Thank you.
That's what I think.
Thank you very much. There are several very good points made by Dr. Srinivasamurthy. He first of all started off talking about the need to look at the mental health of the population rather than the mentally ill. Such a shift will make people to think of mental health illness like they think of nutrition, exercise, beauty, etc. He further goes on to say that a good example in the current pandemic. Instead of, or in addition to talking of anxiety, depression, we should share information that exercise, sleep, nutrition, relaxation, and being connected can promote mental health. So that is all absolutely right. He further says that, sorry to say that we psychiatrists are now functioning like repair shops for the ugly rather than beauty parlors where people like to visit. The treatment gap in Kerala is a warning to the rest of India that increasing services is not the only solution. We must make mental health a people's movement. That is something which I totally echo with. And that is where, again, powerful organizations like the Kerala Shastra Sahitya Parishad can perhaps take the lead. Um, in line with that, Dr. Varghese Punus mentions that his department has been renamed as a Manasiga Arogya Vibhagam instead of Manasiga Roga Vibhagam. Well done, sir. And Dr. Srinivasa points out that CNC Vellore, where I had the privilege of training, always called it the mental health center right from the inception. Rajini Ramchandran asks the question, why is mental health centers or hospitals kept in a separate location altogether than the General Medical Hospital in Trivandrum and Calicut, I wonder? Maybe Dr. Punus can answer that.
It is part of history that mental hospital psychiatry was the first thing to start with, and now again it has been renamed as mental health centers. And with the emergence of general hospital psychiatry, that divide is it's no longer relevant. But still, the rehabilitation these centers, if you go to both these centers nowadays, you will be surprised to find the changes there. It has transformed itself to rehabilitation centers and mental health centers in the real sense. But I should at the same time admit that even when space allocations are done for psychiatry departments in general hospitals and mental hospitals, there is a tendency to keep it at the most remote part of this thing. This is something which we should fight for, and we should. In fact, we are every day in government service or another. We are doing this fight to get psychiatry placed at the most prominent part.
Yeah,
So,
and it's also that both Trivandrum and Calicut medical colleges have very good departments of psychiatry as well. So it is not just that these two cities are served only by the mental health centers, but the medical college departments play a very big role. And I think part of it is administrative as well, isn't it? That the two services are under two separate wings of the government, the mental health centers as well and the medical colleges. I think, yeah. So most of the other comments are very complimentary. I don't know if I have missed anything. Yes, in between there was a comment from our own Raghu, Dr. Raghu Raghavan, who says that mental health literacy is not a unified or unitary concept of being a blind follower of Western psychiatric models. It is all about making sense and meaning of what is around you, and our belief systems play a major role. So he suggests that instead of mental health literacy, as in singular, we should be thinking about mental health literacies in the plural. Dr. Narayan, any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So what we have been seeing is the literacy, as he said, regarding alcoholism, regarding suicides, regarding anxiety disorders, all kinds of these mental illnesses, they should be identified as illnesses which come just like a headache or blood pressure, and they should be taken to the doctor and treated at the right time, so that it doesn't develop into major psychosis and other things. So we are happy to see it happening in our place. Probably because it's a small place, we could do something about it. But largely, we see people as Dr. Punnus Varghese sir was saying, we see people calling from Palakkad, Ernakulam, and so many places asking about where to treat, how to treat. The psychiatrist was saying something about it, but we don't know what to do. So it is something to do with people's perceptions, which has to be looked at in a long-term basis. That is, people have to be taught from school or college that mental health is as part of your health as physical health.
Okay, on that really pertinent note, I think our time is already up. A very big thank you to the speakers for a very interesting session, despite braving the slight technical issues. So thank you all once again very much. Dr. Raghu and Asha have appeared on the screen. Would you like to say anything in addition?
Asha, go on.
No, it was a very interesting panel to look at and discuss on the institutional services and community model and also user. You had like diverse stakeholders within the mental health system to speak. So it was very interesting to hear from all of them. You know, when the mental health literacy project started and now today's culmination, you're reflecting on where we started and where we are today, and this fearless talk has become like a hashtag campaign, and we have started very well today, and it's not only about the project but also with Lakshmi speaking, it became like we are representing user, and from starting from user to an expert, we have deliberated today on several concerns, and there was this kind of anxiety because it's a conference and online platform, and but then it went really well except for certain glitches, so it really went well. From a backstage perspective, we are looking at it and it went well, and I hope the participants also have been able to gather, and it's very important for all of us to come together because it's an important agenda, and culture specific, context specific literacy is very important, and please stay tuned with us for the rest of the days and the sessions, and also please do like us on the Facebook page, and this is time for collective action and taking steps forward, and also thanking all of you because the panelists, like as part of the team, we are all there and we are deliberating, and for joining us, though Attapadi had been one of our sites, Dr. Seeing you for the first time, and it's interesting to hear your perspective, and thank you, Lakshmi, for coming in and joining and adding your views, and definitely it has added strength to our work, and that you coming on board also is really crucial at this juncture for the project. Thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Asha. Thank you, Asha. And I think thank you all the speakers. I think it's been a great pleasure to have you here. And I think it's actually having. I think I could carry on with this conversation and chatting here, really. And I think it's very interesting. This is exactly what we require in terms of promoting that mental health literacy. And I think I would like to suggest, in Attapadi, when we actually did the theatre play, Dr. Narayan was there, and I think the next day after the play, people were actually going to the clinics. People were actually seeking help, and then I thought, this is it. The theater and all those kind of mediums actually provides immediate intervention. We were planning for an intervention study. Even without an intervention study, intervention was actually happening steadily over there. So I think it's nice to see. I think that makes us believe that how engaging with communities, how engaging with people, involving people, inclusivity, or all that collective language helps to actually move the unmovable notion of mental health literacy. Thank you very much indeed, and it's a pleasure to have you, and I'm sure we will continue this conversation offline for many, many years to come.
And Dr. Manoj, I have to read what Professor Andy has put there, that well-chaired session. So we missed acknowledging you. It's a very well-chaired session, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, super chairing. Sorry for the minor hiccups, but I think thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.